welcome back to another episode of the Profit-Minded Business. Today we're joined by Richard Blount II of the Four Winds Agency. We got a lot of great stuff to talk about with Richard. And of course, we're also joined with the co-host here, Jacob Andrews of Media iVue and Drones iVue and Media iVue, or iVue Media. Oh my gosh. I love that. I always mess that one up. I've known him now for probably, a year and a half, and I still can't get that quite right.
Hey, that's all right. It is confusing going from Drones iVue and having iVue at the back to then at the front, but we'll work it out.
Well, we all come together because we know the business owners, oftentimes we suffer silently. We feel like we have these stressors, whether it's cash flow, it could be operational stuff, people problems. But we rarely have a place to go and listen to one another, grow from one another, because honestly, we just don't have time to have these kind of conversations. So the purpose of our podcast is to bring small business owners in and have great conversations about things and learn about the journeys, learn about pitfalls and successes, and really use the concept of iron sharpens iron to pay it forward into our community. So I am Corbin Cook. I'm your host, and I run a company called S&B Strategy Consultants, and I'm part of a partner with the Auxilium Associates. And we focus more on cash flow operations and general consulting on team and talent and sales and marketing. Richard, kick us off. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to launch Four Winds Agency and really who you are in this whole market.
Wow, who I am. That's a very shallow question. Well, I would say that I'd been doing graphic design since the early 80s, and then grew up in Orlando, and from there I worked at a couple of small agencies, and then got on with the Orlando Sentinel, which is owned by the Tribune Company up there in Chicago. But I was with the Sentinel for 20 years, and I moved from doing graphic design to doing online ads and animation, and then doing website development on a team with them. I'd actually started doing a lot of freelance stuff, which led to them moving me from one area of the company to another. I tend to be a pretty open person, so everybody in the office knew that, around 2007, I was, very aggressively doing a lot of freelance work, doing website design and all that kind of stuff. So when management was creating these different departments and shuffling things around, because since the internet came on, the newspaper industry has really been taking a hit as far as revenue is concerned. And so my friends, 2007, I started doing a lot of freelance work, and my friends were like, what are you doing? You're going to start your own agency? I'm like, no, I have no desire to run an agency. I just passionate about what I do, and there's all these different things that we're capable of doing now.
Right.
Why would you want to just sit back and watch this stuff happen when you could be part of it?
Oh yeah.
So I was actively doing that, and then in October of 2015, I was in India with a church group. We were doing a serving trip, and then I got the news that the paper was actually offering, the company was offering people the ability to take a severance package. Yeah. And so I was wrestling with that, and when I was discussing it with my friends on the team while we were over there, the words came out of my mouth was like, yeah, I really want to take it, which was a shock to me, because I was like, wow, I guess I really want to do this. Yeah. But I had no idea what I wanted to do next. It didn't dawn on me, to start my own agency.
Right.
And then, so we were there for just under 2 weeks. And during that time, I just started having this vision for, actually starting an agency. What it might look like and things like that. And then, but when I came back, I opted in, to do it. And then when the decision came down, just about everybody in my department was, got the package except for me. And they were like, no, Richard, we want you to stay. And I'm like, well, all right. I'm very, very big into, my first thought was like, when you're watching a movie and there's a plot twist, that just puts you on the edge of your seat. You're like, all right, what's going to happen next?
What happens next?
Yeah.
And you're a man of faith too.
Yeah.
And so you're reading this like, this is part of the plan.
Yeah, this is a plot twist. I thought for
Yes.
sure we were going in this direction, and I'm sitting there and like, oh, okay,
Is it not
this
yet?
is gonna be amazing. so so everybody ends up leaving. It's just me and one other designer left in the department, and he doesn't do website stuff, so I'm managing 70 or 80 websites for a while and keeping up with clients, and then the Tribune decides to go ahead and outsource the entire thing, and so I'm now just get rid of everything, and but this is there's a bunch of overlap, and I apologize for not being like linear, but like in 2016, January 2016, I started Four Winds Agency, and around later on that year is when they had me transfer everything out. I really didn't have a whole lot of work to do at the Sentinel at this point.
Right.
And so I was working on Four Winds Agency. And I was, whenever I wasn't working on a project for, the company,
Yeah.
you
were building Four Winds.
I was building Four Winds.
Now, tell us how that name came about, because you told us an interesting story before we got a chance to go on air.
Yeah, as I was going through a couple of different ideas that came to my mind, I was just reminded that whenever in the scriptures, whenever God wants to spread a message or stop something, he refers to the four winds as moving to the four corners of the earth. So I really liked the connection of that analogy or metaphor or whatever, and so. And that's the one that really stuck with me. And because my goal in doing website development for my clients is to help them spread their message to the four corners of the earth. So use Four Winds Agency in order to do that.
That's
So
great.
so it all kind of tied in together. And I just feel like it was the right thing because everything kind of just flew from that as far as, whenever I'm doing my branding, it's just so many things just fall into place when I'm doing it. So it's, I don't know, it kind of helps me as far as, I don't know, it keeps everything tied together.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so you launched, and you eventually got the severance package.
yeah, in August 2017, they gave me the severance package. And about a month later, we closed on a house up here in Dunwoody and moved up to Atlanta.
Wow, that was a big.
It was a big
big
thing. Yeah, my wife and I, we got married in the fall of 2016. We'd been friends for 10, 12 years before the light bulb finally went off in my head, and I was like, whoa, And so it was. We got married 2016. I sold my house, and we were looking to sell her house and find a place. And we were visiting my aunt and uncle up here in Sandy Springs. And she's like, oh, I wouldn't mind living up here. I'm like, really? So I just did what I usually do. I just started researching the heck out of everything. And 6 months later, she had a job up here, and we closed on a house. And I already had 2 clients up here in the Atlanta area, and doing what I do with graphic design and web development. I was able to keep, all my clients when I moved up here, with Skype or Zoom or email and phone calls. It all still works. So
The connected age of the internet in all its glory.
I'm telling you, yeah.
Going back a little bit, so before you were at the Tribune, you were already involved in like graphic design and web development. What led to that? Like, did you just start for that job learning those skills, or did you have a passion doing it as a hobby before then? Like, where did you get started in what you're doing now?
Well, I'd been drawing since I was 5, and I remember my mom saying that that I should grow up and be an artist.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I want to be rich. So I went off on my own path, but ended up as an accounting clerk at Disney. You don't get rich doing that. No. But I was on a team of 70 people, and I was the only one that had Happy Meal toys all over his cubicle, had posters up. If a report needed to look good, like, give it to Richard. He likes to do the graphs. He does this. And they wanted to boost morale at one point, so they're like, let's have a newsletter. And I'm like, oh, I'll do that. So I was doing like little cartoons for it, and I was laying it out and all that kind of stuff. So, it was just always part of me as far as all that was concerned.
It was just kind of a natural progression. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I ended up leaving Disney to pursue a multi-level marketing thing that I got talked into from a friend, it didn't take long
Never
before.
hurts to try.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I did. I jumped in, full throttle,
Okay.
and within a few months, I went from being $1,000 in credit card debt to $25,000 in credit card debt,
Wow.
and I had no job. So, as I had left Disney and I was going to do this whole thing, and so it was bad. And I remember one evening, it was in February of '97, I think. And February '97, I went to bed. I just prayed. I'm like, Lord, I can't pay this stuff off. I'll do the bankruptcy thing if this is where I should go. But I know you can do it if you want. I'm willing to do whatever you want. So
Yeah.
I went to bed thinking, well, I can be a guardsman during the day and I can work McDonald's at night. I know how to do those two
Yeah,
things.
right.
And the next day, I got a call from my uncle who lives up here in Sandy Springs, and he's like, do you know how to do websites? I'm like, no.
No.
And I'm
At
like,
that point, you had no experience. with
no,
it.
97, no.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's like, well, I'm paying these guys to do it. I think you could do it.
Wow.
Do you know anybody who could teach you? And I'm like, yeah, my buddy Mark, he's been telling me we need to be doing this.
Wow.
So I call up Mark, and he's like, yeah, come on over tonight. Ginger will make dinner. We'll sit down and we'll go through it. I'm like, all right, cool. So that night, I went over, and he took me through this program, and I'm like, oh, I got this. All right. So
Yeah.
started, and then he's like, are you interested in doing any graphic design work for Disney? And I'm like, well, sure. And he's like, well, meet me in my office tomorrow, because he was a graphic designer for Disney, and we're giving out some work. So the next day I was there at his office, and he needed all these illustrations done for the standard operating procedure manuals for the wide world of sports that Disney was building at the time. And I'm like, sweet. So I would wake up like, I don't know, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. I would wake up, just boom, out of a cold sleep. I'm like, oh, I get to work. And I would sit in front of the computer and work until like, I don't know, 10 or so. And I'd finally get hungry, and I'd get up, take a shower, eat, and then, hop back into it and start doing illustration work. And so from that point on, I felt like I had blinders on, and it's all I could see was doing graphic design and doing website stuff, which led to, getting on with a couple of small agencies, and then getting hired on at the Sentinel. So it was, and then about 3 years, a little over 3 years later, I paid off the last of all that debt, and he just given me plenty of work, and I have no hesitation in working. So.
Wow.
I bet that must have been a huge sigh of relief to get all that
Oh yeah,
gone and
I
paid
immediately went out and bought a convertible after that. So like, all right, this is great.
Well, Richard, one of the things that you talked about, and one of like the secrets to your success now even, is part of your organizational methods. You talked a lot about how that really struck you at some point. Tell us about that, because I think that it struggles a lot of business owners to not only just time management, but organizing a structure around their processes.
Yeah, that's the big thing, because people would ask me, like, hey, Richard, did you work on, the dental, ad for whatever? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Right.
Can you show me a picture of it? Because if you show me a picture of what I did, I can tell you whether I did it or not. But, just asking me, I'm clueless, because my mindset is, I work on a project, I'm all in, I get out, and I'm on to the next one.
Sure.
And I don't think about what's behind me. Edna Bose in The Incredibles, fantastic quote. Yeah, she's like, she never looks behind her. It's a distraction. I mean, always be in the now. Something like that. I forget exactly now what her quote is, but when she said it in the movie, I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant.
It's
you know?
amazing how powerful like Disney animation movies are. Like if you really like break them down and like see the message and the story that they're trying to get across, I mean, they're really powerful.
They are. I mean, I'm a big fan of Pixar. I mean, they just do an amazing job, and there are messages that come out during those movies that you're like, oh, they're, you know, the general public's allowed, you know, they're okay to hear this because it's, you know, you listen to some of it and you're like when Dash is not being allowed to run fast, and you know, her mom was like, you know, because he's talking about being special, and his mom's like, well, everybody's special, and he's like, which means nobody is, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so powerful, you know, and because that's you know, I think there's a lot in there that you could really unpack.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of truth to that, but you know, just because everyone's special doesn't mean that necessarily no one's special. Everyone's special in their own way, as cheesy and cliche as that is. I mean,
it's true. You gotta focus on your strengths,
right?
You know, don't focus on your weaknesses, trying to balance yourself out. Find out what you're good at and excel at it.
Right, and build a team around the rest. You know,
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still pretty stubborn, so I like to try to do as much as I can by myself, and then I realize, wow, I'm being really inefficient by not just asking for help. And that's a big one, that especially as business owners, you know, it's not necessarily embarrassing, but you know, it's like, you know, I'm going to show vulnerability if I got to ask for help. And, you know, I think that's something that a lot more people could probably deploy in starting up and trying to get a business growing. And, you know, I'm still at the very early stages of that, but
sometimes it's all about adding in, you know, pricing that help too. I mean, it's not that you can't just bring in help just to bring in help. I mean, sometimes
if you can't afford it,
you can't afford it because it's, you know, you didn't price it in for the job or whatever the case is. So you kind of have to be mindful of your strengths and know where you're weak, because if you don't, you could wind up down the road where you need help, and of course you're going to lose money on the job,
right?
By having to bring somebody in,
or not even lose money. You just can't do the job just because, again, you didn't price it in, and you just can't afford to bring in help. And
it's key to know your unique ability.
Yeah,
I think you figured out, and why when people pressed you to start the agency, you were like, I don't know, I like to be all in on the project.
Yeah.
And if I have an agency, I actually have to step back and relinquish control to somebody who may or may not be as good as I am.
You're right.
And may not have the passion for it.
Yeah, and that's what I've run into from trying to work with, you know, different designers on different projects. They haven't had the eye for detail that I'm going to have, because when I'm working on a project, I want it to be, you know, to a certain level. And, you know, there are, you know, and if you're not invested in a project, then you'll look at it and go, okay, that's good enough. And they'll send it off. And I like to have it better, you know, than that.
How do you deal with that? I mean, from a quality control standpoint, how do you not end up doubling your time, because you're on there, so then there's your hourly, and you're overseeing somebody who you're paying, you know, for the project.
Yeah. What I ended up doing was on a couple of projects where I've got help with is I usually set up the initial design. I will get the groundwork done as far as creating the mock-up, creating the look, creating the standard, and getting all that done. And then, like for a website, for instance, I'll do the initial mock-ups and get everything ready, and then I'll have one of my designers, who I've got a couple that are still out in Orlando that I like to use because I can depend on them. They're great people. But I get it all set up, and then they come in and follow my lead, and then I still have cleanup work that I do afterwards, but the amount of time I spend is a lot less. So instead of, you know, spending, you know, 15, 16 hours on something, you know, I'll have them go in and get the bulk of it done, and then I'll go in and spend 4, 5 hours on it, cleaning it all up and doing all the little tweaks and things that I think would put it over the edge. So I feel like that's a good balance of time as far as that's concerned. The other area is I'm looking at hiring like a virtual assistant just to help with emails, because it's phone calls and emails that will bog you down the most. And at this point, since I'm more web-based than anything else, most of my clients are used to just emailing me rather than calling me. So that's why I'm looking at a virtual assistant and using them as far as intercepting those emails and getting what they can get done put into my project management system, so that I don't have to deal with that part of it. I can just keep track of my project management system to see what's due, when it's due, and stay on top of things that way.
That's really interesting. With you sharing your story, it's like what I hear a lot of is it's a faith journey, spiritual journey for you.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like you are now in your chapter in your journey?
Well, it's interesting because throughout my entire life, I am a control freak. I want to be in charge of everything. I remember having a conversation when in the 90s, I was working second shift and on a design team, and it was dawning on me how much of a control freak I am. And when I was sharing it with the guys I was working with, and one of them, Jim, he's like, "Oh, Mr. Richard, can I go use the bathroom?" I said, "No, you don't understand. You have no need to go to the bathroom."
Oh no.
And he's like, "Oh my gosh, you have a problem." I'm like, "I know. This is bad." And,
it's a disease.
yeah. So I spent a lot of time just really, trying to understand who God is and who I am in this relationship. And and as I journeyed and went, he kept calling me further and further outside my comfort zone, to the point where I ended up doing a trip down the Amazon with a church group. And I had never been camping or fishing or hiking or anything like that. I was an indoor kid.
You went to the Amazon?
And when they said, we have a trip going down the Amazon, I'm like, oh, I'm
The fulfillment center?
I'm like, yeah, I don't think. Well, no, Amazon I think was around then at that point, and because this was 2002.
It was still trying to figure out how to make money, but
Yeah.
still it was around.
So they, but I went because they had two trips, one to South Dakota and one to the Amazon. So I went to the South Dakota one because I'm not going down the Amazon, and it just really didn't speak to me. I was like, yeah, but I'm going to stay for the Amazon one just to reiterate the fact that I'm not going. After watching the presentation and hearing what we were doing, I mean, I'm signing up to go. And I remember walking back to the car. I'm like, I cannot believe I have a desire to go down the Amazon. This is insane.
Yeah.
And so, and that that led to a lot of great discoveries between who God is and what we're called, our part, and because like at one point on the trip we were living on a boat for a week, and we would stop at a village, and we were in the village for like 4 hours, and we would do every village we went to had a soccer field, so it was great. We'd play soccer for a bit, hang out with the kids. We would do like this vacation Bible study thing camp with the kids, and then we would while another team talked to the adults about hygiene. And then we had two nurse practitioners on board who were seeing people during this entire time. And then we would have like a service at the end. And, we ended up with like one or two people coming to Christ at that point. So, we'd give them a Bible in Portuguese. And then, so we're there for about 4 hours. We're interacting and all this kind of stuff. And then we're getting back on the boat and, taking off. Yeah. And I'm furious. I am so upset because if these people are just coming to Christ, or they're
just leaving them.
We're just leaving them. I mean, someone needs to stay behind and help and understand, because you run into issues pretty quickly with how you perceive your life should be. If you're following Christ, and it doesn't become a bed of roses.
Right.
So I'm on the top deck of the boat, and I'm just fuming.
Just come back and get me later, guys.
Yeah, and I'm fuming it with God, and I'm like, what the heck are you doing? This makes no sense to me whatsoever. And then one of the translators came over, and he was a young guy, and we were talking, and he was telling me how happy the captain was. The captain is in the boathouse, which is like 15 feet away from me, and he's happy. I'm over here fuming. So there's a disconnect. Something's wrong. And so I started realizing, that we are like a gear or a cog in a gear and a mechanism that is happening in life. And if we have a chance to be a part of something for a moment, then be a part of that, and then trust God's going to take the rest of it, and He's got it. It's a much bigger picture than we can handle. So that was the beginning of a lot of lessons as far as me letting go of control and being okay with that. And finances, I think, I hope, is one of the last areas of control that I'm being released from. Because with a steady paycheck, you're like, I've always felt isolated. I'm like, all right, I can manage what I've got to do, what I need to get done with the money I've negotiated with my employer. And now, seeing this whole, as I was approaching launching the agency and going out on my own, I see myself as a squirrel, because you see the squirrels, every day they're out picking nuts, trying to find the one they buried,
Yeah.
And then stockpiling them up in the tree.
So I just see myself as a squirrel now, totally dependent on God for everything, for income, for health, and for sanity, and everything from there on out. So it's been an amazing journey. And so, like, I think I feel like I'm in a good spot, but there's always going to be things that you don't expect come up that you're going to have to deal with. So I'm just all in.
Yeah.
And
So what's next for Four Winds? Do you have like a roadmap of somewhere where you want it to be in the next 5-10 years?
Or even just a God-given vision. Like, has God let you in on the next step, or?
a lot of times he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He has never given me any clue as to what's going to happen next, and so that's where I've
It's
just
a big deal for you to have to let go like that.
Yeah, so that's
to hear that you were, where you were
Control
from a
freak,
control
yeah.
freak thing.
Yeah.
How do I say this right? The control freak part of you.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, literally, I'm all in. I'm dependent upon.
Yeah, I look at everything as a plot twist. If things don't go the way that I expected them to go, I'm like, okay, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I just, attack that as far as, all right, then, if destination A is being blocked, it's either I have to work harder at it, or there's a different way to get there.
Yeah.
And and we ended up, I'm part of a mastermind group or executive roundtable or whatever through the chamber. And we were going through this book called Scaling Up. And one of the things that they talk about is, coming up with goals. And goals have been kind of hard for me because I try to just not predict what's going to happen. But the test seemed, or not the test, but the question seemed, kind of fun as far as like, if you could have anything, where you want to go, what would it be? And I'm like, all right, if I'm just going to like have fun with this, I would say I'd like to have an agency of 8 to 10 people, because that's large enough to take care of, small to medium-sized companies, have a good staff to do content, and then to design, develop, and manage and all that kind of stuff. That's a pretty good size. And as far as clients, I would love to have like a contract with a Formula One racing company. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, how would I get around? Oh, maybe if I had a contract with like a hotel, chain, that'd be great. That I get, hopefully discounts on hotels. And then I thought, like aerospace or a plane manufacturer, something like that. Just all these things that are cool to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how hotels fit into that, but just you need a place to stay. But
Travel.
yeah, but
You gotta go to the race.
you gotta stay somewhere.
You gotta stay somewhere.
So you do Airbnb or hotel or whatever.
Right.
But
VRBO.
I've used them a few times, and they're all great. You end up with some really great places. But at this point, I just came up with that goal like 2 weeks ago, literally.
Well, that's pretty cool. So let me ask you this. All right. So a lot of folks are listening who are faith-based understand that what you're describing, your ability to communicate with God and feel good about that relationship, there's a routine behind that. Would you share a little bit about what your spiritual routine is? Because it sounds like that's a big part of how you're, and maybe it's too personal. You can let me know when you.
Well, people would always ask, like, do you have quiet time?
Yeah.
Do you do this or whatever? And I never understood that. I'm like, what are you talking about? And like my wife, she has her quiet time in the morning, and I know not to disturb her, and that's her moment and everything. And I get that. But I personally feel that like years ago, I struggled with, compartmentalizing my life and trying to uncompartmentalize my life and let it be moments instead of blocks of time.
Okay.
And so that everything can flow from one thing to another, as opposed to this block of time is this block of time is that, blah blah blah. But no, you can mix and match, and you can intersperse a lot of stuff. So I feel like I end up having a conversation with God throughout the day. And it starts like when I wake up, before I even get out of bed, I'm like, all right, Lord, like what, I start praying for that I have a productive day, and that I don't lose my top over anything, and stuff like that. Because when you're dealing with websites that decide they want to go down and your client's calling you, and I'm like, it was working, it's not my fault. And you're on the phone with a hosting server and like, oh yeah, we had to shut down this server and it took down these websites, but it'll be back up, so just manage, that kind of stuff. So, but I just feel like I have like a long, throughout the entire day. I mean, when I'm driving in the car and when I'm sitting there just working on a project, because there are some projects where you don't have to really do a lot of thinking. You're like, all right, I'm copying this over, I'm moving this, you're not really doing any problem solving.
Right.
And so I just feel like, that it's just a constant, continual thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a important thing that you bring up, where not everyone has the same idea of like a down quiet time. Like my brother's a very spiritual person, and he's always trying to push like very what's the word? Stereotypical types of meditation, like doing the Om and all of that. And it's like my daily routine is my meditation, it's doing what I want to do every day, being mindful of that. And, there are definitely moments where, something goes wrong and it can get the better of you and it frustrates you. But, I like that, it's not necessarily, I got to set 30 minutes aside every day to have quiet time or meditation time or prayer time, whatever it may be, that you can just incorporate that into your daily routine, and therefore, it's part of you 24/7.
Yeah. It's just, and I think after I went down the Amazon, it wasn't long after that I discovered hiking, and I would start hiking, and I found myself just stepping away from any electronic device and getting out into the woods was just really calming and just really centered me. And so like on Sundays, a lot of times I won't even, not because it's Sunday, but just that's a good day of the week for me. If Thursday was a better day of the week for me, depending on what my, career or job or responsibilities were, I would pick that day. But on Sundays are days I won't answer emails. I rarely pick up the phone. It's usually not even in the room with me. And I just really disengage as much as I possibly can. And I find that really helps, because you can burn yourself out. Because when you're as passionate about what you do, as you wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and you start your day and you're working until your wife tells you, okay, let's have dinner and I want my time. You're like, okay, all right. And Saturdays are your half days where you're only working 8 hours.
Right.
Then, you can get burnt out on this. So having a day where you just
step back. Yeah.
You've got to step back and just not think about it and realize there's more to life in this world than your part of it.
Right.
And so open yourself up to what's going on and take in stuff so that you're a lot more interesting at parties.
Yeah.
You're not just always talking about what you do.
Yeah, and it also helps, in my case, just being more creative when you're always like focused on trying to get a task done. You know, it doesn't give you time to just decompress and let your mind kind of wander and come up with new ideas. And
Yeah.
that's definitely an essential part of like making sure I stay sane, is just letting go from the technology. And you're talking about bringing in a virtual assistant to kind of help you with that, because it really is a full-time job just keeping up with emails and phone calls and all those communication efforts, if you're not careful.
I know, that's the thing. People think that, oh, you're working for yourself. I'm like, no, I'm working for like a lot of different people now.
Yeah.
And the goal is to work for even more. So
I had somebody once ask me, I said, why don't you come work for me? We'll kind of look at that. And I said, well, I don't really like the idea of having a boss. He's like, it'll be like the idea of having 50 bosses. And I was like, well, yeah, but then I could fire them.
Exactly.
It's a little bit different when you're dependent upon a paycheck versus you have the option of working with somebody.
exactly.
But yeah, this is great. Well, thank you so much, Richard. I want to kind of wrap it up because I know we kind of move on today. But I think what you've been talking about speaks volumes to folks who have their own faith journey going on, and they just needed to hear that someone else is on that same type of journey. I think sometimes we forget that, whether you're a part of a men's group or a part of a church group or part of a spiritual, environment, whatever the case is. I think today was a great example of someone who is on a faith journey with their business. Is there something else around that subject that you'd want to share with somebody who might be maybe frustrated or struggling within their faith journey with their business? Is there just
people out there trying to get started, trying to grow their business, trying to overcome some of those struggles that are stopping them from getting started? If you had any sort of advice.
Well, I mean, other than, praying a lot, I think I'm obviously a big fan of that. And then if I'm not clear, I mean, I will do like a day of fasting and just try to really be very focused on doing that. But as a practical side of me as well, I think one of the best things I did was there were two books that I read that have been very helpful. And that was the E-Myth Revisited and the How to Get Things Done, which sounds like a very boring topic, but I listened to the audiobook, and it was great because it's not something they teach you in school, how to be organized and how to separate things into tasks and stuff like that. And so it was very rudimentary, and but it's just the practical side, because you've got to have both. I mean, it's your responsibility to make sure you do a good job with what you've been given. So with the E-Myth Revisited helped a lot with understanding the shifts in my head that I've got to have when I'm dealing.
Technician and then the
entrepreneur.
the different roles.
Yeah. So that was huge.
Yes.
And so I could start seeing it in myself, like, oh wait, I'm being a technician, switch over to being the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And
just knowing that it happens.
Yeah.
Or that you could get stuck in one role and then not understand why nothing else is getting done or working.
And why people don't want to work with you.
Yes.
You're like, oh, because I was yelling at them for this or that. So I think those two books were really big. Helped because I think back on them a lot.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps. I think that's.
Well, for those that are listening that are in that faith walk, I think that we touched on something that we haven't really been able to explore in depth, and so I think it was just a great conversation. Thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you,
Jacob. What are your thoughts on as we kind of close and wrap up?
Just something that we just kind of briefly skimmed over is, especially getting started, no matter the type of journey you're on, that you don't have to just go all in straight from the start. You know, Richard's a prime example where you can kind of ease into something until you're comfortable being uncomfortable to some degree, and
There you go.
what
Yeah.
level you're being what level you're okay with being uncomfortable is different for everyone. So
Yeah.
just finding out where that is for you, and
That's
then
great.
starting from there.
Good point.
Yeah.
And Richard, you mentioned several different, ideal customers, clients as you move forward in your next chapter. How can those people or anyone at this point looking for help getting their messages spread to the four corners of the world, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best method?
Best method is our website, fourwindsagency.us, and just shoot me an email. I've got a little scheduling icon in the footer there where you can schedule a phone call, and that's the best time to get me focused on what you might need or want. So I think the website's the best way. fourwindsagency.us.
Okay, .us.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And Jacob, give us how's the best way for someone who was looking for video production. I mean, Jacob's team is the one that is producing our podcast and also making sure that it gets out onto YouTube as well as the different podcast options. So if you are looking for someone to help you with some video production, getting your message out, and even using a Jacob to then connect to a Richard as far as getting the messaging out there, how can they get a hold of you, Jacob?
Yeah, likewise, go to our website, www.ivue.media, or reach out to me directly. If you search either myself or iVue Media on Google, you'll find us.
Great. Of course, I'm Corbin Cook. You can reach me at smbstrategyconsultants.com or just call me directly at 404-783-3305. Again, I focus more on cash flow and profitability of your business. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, thank you.
Awesome.